Hey everyone, this is Zephyr, and welcome to the BaileyWiki channel, where we teach everyday DMs how to create truly amazing experiences for their players by combining art and technology. We also create modular systems and scenes that you can use without any setup. If you're a DM that likes to wow their players and you're using platforms like Foundry VTT and Dungeon Draft, then you're in the right place. Today, we're going to go over one of the most fundamental pieces of our modular systems and scenes, and that is creating prefabs with the Token Attacher module for Foundry. It allows us to assign artwork, lighting, walls, and more to actors that we can then bring into any scene. There's a lot to learn and cover, so definitely check the timestamps in the description if there's any areas that you need to revisit or brush up on specifically. Now let's dive in. To create prefabs for Foundry, we're going to need the Token Attacher module, the libwrapper module, which is a dependency of Token Attacher, and finally, any artwork or other assets that we're going to have with our particular prefab. Once we have all of our assets, we're going to first create an actor. I've already made this deployable house actor. The type of actor and the setup doesn't really matter. You can also create a fresh one for any prefab that you're doing. I generally recommend making sure this is a non-player character type of actor, but it's not crucial that it's non-player. Once you have the actor, you can bring it in and you can change the token or the artwork. It doesn't really matter. We like using these small dots from the BaileyWiki modules. And now we're going to bring in our artwork first and foremost. I'm going to be using a Class 2 house from the BaileyWiki Premium Maps Towns module. You can find that within your modules and the Towns folder there. I've already selected this one, so I know exactly where to go. We're going to bring in a nice house, as that's going to have a variety of elements for us to include here. Just like when you're bringing in a tile for your scene, you want to make sure that you have the correct asset grid size and more. You can think of this like we're building a house on any other scene. We're just going to keep it free of other clutter so that we can then assign it to a token and bring it in afterwards. So I'm going to also bring in a roof and get my artwork generally set up. This will be an overhead tile, and I'm going to make sure that it's the correct asset grid size before I get building the rest of it. Once we have both of these pieces in place, we could actually create a prefab right now, but we're going to go ahead and create all of our walls and everything and make sure it's lined up nicely to the grid. Keep in mind that this prefab is like your master blueprint. If there's something that bothers you or isn't quite perfect about it now, it's going to bother you every time you bring it into another scene. So take a little extra time and care when setting up your prefabs. It will pay dividends in the long run as you continue to deploy these assets in a variety of other setups and situations. Now I'm configuring my roof to be as robust as possible, as I'm usually going to be deploying this as a first story building where I'm actually going to have wall heights and such matter. Just another example of trying to pay attention to what I'm doing and make sure that this is as robust and useful as possible. As a quick demonstration, I am bringing in a wall here and configuring it for wall height. You can do that manually, or what I prefer to do is go into my levels controls and open up my levels UI so that I'm already drawing things in the correct restrictions. This makes it a little more robust. And I'm going to speed things up as I go ahead and rapid fire wall out this entire prefab. Once again, make sure that you're setting things up how you want it to be every single time you bring it into a scene. The repeatable nature of prefabs is what makes them so powerful. This house is equally at home in a small town as it is lining a city street. So making sure that we have things configured in a robust and powerful manner makes it really useful when we're building out scenes. We can also add in our lights, our sounds, etc. Basically, if it's something that can be placed upon the canvas, you can attach it to a token. This applies not only to the walls, lights, and sounds and artwork that I'm showing here, but also to other assets, such as journal pins if you want to have specific journal pins, though you need to be careful with those because they won't always link. And you can also attach other actors within a prefab. If, for example, you don't want to have a deployable house, but perhaps a deployable battalion of guards, you can also do that by using Token Attacher. There's a lot of great possibilities here, which is one of the reasons why we love Token Attacher so much. Once we've finalized our prefab, it's time to actually attach everything. When we have a token selected, you'll notice there is now a TA open attaching dialog here. And we have a bank of new tools that we can use for attaching, detaching, and locking multiple elements here. There's a lot of different features here, but we're mostly going to focus on the attaching and detaching aspects. So with our control token selected, we're going to use this select tool to lasso all of the different elements we want to attach. So we're dragging that right over everything we've already built. And we'll see as we move it around, the artwork and the lighting and the sounds are all coming with us, but it looks like this roof tile is not. This occasionally happens with things at different levels of elevation, and to fix that, we can instead open up our tiles and we can look at the roof tile itself. We're also going to open back up our attaching UI, and we'll notice that it stays open no matter what tool we're on. So it makes it really easy to grab specific elements. Here I'm looking at the roof tiles for this particular level using levels. I'm going to select our pesky roof that isn't wanting to attach. Then I'm going to use this chain link option that is going to attach the specifically selected item to my token. And now when I move it around, we'll see that the overhead tile is coming with us right along for the ride. All of our walls, lights, and sounds are also moving just as we would hope. So already this is really cool, and we can also rotate things, and it will all stay in perfect orientation related to the prefab. So this is how we build a prefab within a single scene. But now let's take it up to the next level and make it deployable, where we can use it in any scene. With our prefab created, we can drag it around and move it, and we can configure the token however we want, such as renaming it to something descriptive. Then if we go back to our original actor, when we bring it in, it's just a normal plain Jane control token, and it functions like any other token would. We're now going to change the actual token that gets deployed when we drag this actor in. We're going to do that by going into the prototype token menu, and instead of updating token, we're going to select assign token. And we'll see here that we've updated the prototype token, and you can double check that by seeing that the token name has updated. What that's doing is updating the token that is associated with this actor to have all of the data of our prefab. And we can see now when we drag in that actor, the token named house comes in with all of the attachments to it, which makes this a really flexible and powerful option. As you can see, every single type of element that we had attached to our original prefab has come in no problem with this deployable option. Just remember to use the assign token option here. We can take this a step further by hiding our original prototype token here. And with Token Attacher, it's actually going to preserve that hide data. So if we go into our prototype token and once again assign this token, we can bring out that deployable prefab again, and we'll notice that it goes ahead and hides itself. That way our players won't see this control token. Very useful if the token isn't what you want them to be seeing. Another useful change to do on your prefabs is to update its actor image. Since we've already assigned and changed the prototype token, the appearance of the prototype token is no longer going to be linked to the actor image. So just as a demonstration, here's a new fire icon here, and we'll see that the appearance hasn't changed on that prototype token. It's still the one that we assigned to it. So when I drag this out, we're still going to get the whole prefab. So absolutely no worries about changing the actor image. Where this is most useful, and perhaps most obviously, is a thumbnail. Here we can assign a thumbnail, such as the one in the maps towns here, and we can assign a descriptive thumbnail that makes it really easy to tell what this whole prefab is, rather than just what the token's individual appearance is. Seeing that it's a control token isn't all that useful unless it is a control token not attached to anything else. A final piece, you've probably noticed that our control token is moving around without having this animated movement. That's also a token attacher feature. Opening up our token attacher window, there is the toggle run animation that you can turn on and off to allow a token to teleport to its destination. At times, you're going to want to make adjustments to a prefab. You'll notice that if I'm trying to move this tile out, I can get the black outline on hover and double click to open the configuration, but I can't actually select and move it. Same with these walls or any other item that is attached to a control token using Token Attacher. To change that, I need to open up what's called Token Attacher's Quick Edit mode. It's just below the attaching UI, and turning it on adds this small visual indicator at the bottom of the screen. And it then allows me to move any attached items as if they were unattached. So I can move this tile out to another position for whatever reason. Or I can move the control token out of the way so that I still have the control token, but it's not cluttering up my screen as a DM. When I'm done making my adjustments, I can click on the Quick Edit Mode button again to turn it off. And then everything moves in proportion to the control token at the last time Quick Edit Mode was closed. This comes in handy if you're making any other kinds of adjustments, such as walling when there's multiple prefabs touching each other, or if you want to tweak the alignment. You can also toggle Quick Edit Mode via macro. This is a lot more convenient than having to open up your token tools every time you want to toggle Quick Edit Mode. It's usually easier to do when you're within the tools that make sense for what you're fixing. To get this macro, go into your compendiums, and then there's the example macros compendium from Token Attacher. Within that, you're looking for the inkpot and quill iconed TA toggle quick edit mode macro. You'll want to import that and keep it handy for all of your build sessions. Occasionally, you may run into orphaned pieces, like this tile that I'm not able to move around, as if it is attached with Token Attacher, but I can move it if I have quick edit mode on. This is a missing link, something that doesn't have its control token, and we can get rid of that by using the Token Attacher delete missing links macro. And this is a great tool to have handy that you can also find in the example macros compendium. Use this anytime something is attached to nothing when it should be attached to something and you need to get rid of it. It will delete all of them from the scene, so use with caution if you want to actually keep a hold of any of that. Next, let's dive into prefabs using Monk's active tile triggers and Tagger, which really make deployable world building and GMing incredible. I've created a simple prefab that uses active tiles to flip a light between two colors, red and blue. We can see in the triggers that I'm using this ambient light, which I selected using the entity picker for Monk's active tiles. If I want to make this a prefab, like I've done here, and I drag in the new token, when I attempt to click on any of these switches down here, it's altering only the original light. That's obviously not the behavior we want, and the reason that's occurring is because in the triggers, we're still specifying this ambient light that we picked. We're not using anything that's dynamic here. That's okay in perhaps some small situations, but we don't want to be using the exact same ID like we are here. We want this to be dynamic and be associated with the light that is a part of the same prefab. So one of the options here is to take advantage of Tagger. Using Tagger, we can apply a tag to this light. We're going to go ahead and just call it a color changing light here. And now we can reference that with our tiles. This isn't going to be a perfect solution, as we'll see here shortly, but it will make this much more robust. I can now change from an entity picker item to a tag. I'm going to go ahead and just paste in the tag that I selected earlier. If you're unfamiliar with Tagger, it allows us to have these persistent flags that are going to stay onto an object that isn't going to vary with its ID. So this allows us to reference this light no matter what scene it's in or no matter where its home is from, as opposed to an ID, which is going to change every time we create a new scene. So I'm going to assign this updated prefab to our original actor here. And then when we drag it in, we'll see that something interesting happens. If I activate this, both of these lights are going to change. Because the lights have the exact same tag, any action that affects one tag is going to affect both of them. This can be desirable in some situations where you want something to affect multiple objects with the same name. But in this case, we're trying to have them be independent. So the final piece of the puzzle here is to incorporate Tagger's Wildcard feature. It's pretty simple. All we're doing is adding a pound symbol inside of two curly brackets. This is then going to make the tag dynamic. We'll also change this in our Monk's active tile triggers action so that we're actually referencing that tag number, and that is creating a wildcard for us. With this now, our original prefab is going to only affect itself, and we get a really interesting behavior with prefabs, thanks to some beautiful ingenuity on the part of Wasp, the author of Tagger. So once again, we're going to be assigning this updated prefab token to our actor and dragging the new one. And now we'll notice that the controls are completely independent from each other. And when we click on the light, rather than having the curly brackets with the pound symbol, we actually have a number 1. Every single time we drag in this prefab, it's going to replace the pound symbol inside of the curly brackets with a number, and it's always going to increase by 1 depending upon what others are present in the scene. We'll also see that that gets updated within our Monk's active tile trigger actions, making it so that we can deploy an infinite number of these lights within a scene without any of them interfering with each other, completely independent. What if we ended up deleting our original token, but we need to make some alterations? Dragging one in is going to give us that number, but if we assign that to our actor is no longer going to iterate. So to fix that, we can go into our configure controls, and Tagger actually has a keyboard command for ignoring tag rules when we drop it in. As long as we hold down this particular key, in this case left control, then when we drag in a prefab, it's not going to apply that wildcard rule that is going to replace the pound symbol in curly brackets with a number. So I just dragged one in, and now I'm going to hold down control as I drag in a second. You can see the original one that I did not hold control for has that number. Whereas the second one I brought in, where I was holding down that don't apply tag rules key, instead has that pound symbol once again in the curly brackets. So that's the prefab that we can edit, reassign to our prefab actor, and then have those changes push across every time we deploy the prefab while still keeping our wildcard information. So I'm going to make some adjustments and switch the colors here from red and blue to red and green. Then I will go ahead and test it, and finally we'll assign it to that actor and bring it back in to confirm that the change still works. And now when I drag in the new one, we have those red and green colors, and it still iterates. So that's how you can continue to update your wildcard prefabs. That's going to conclude this tutorial on the basics of prefabs with Token Attacher. I hope that this answered any questions you might have. There's obviously a lot going on with Token Attacher, and there are a lot of possibilities. If there's anything that you think we left out in this, please let us know in the comments down below. And let me know what other tutorials you would like to see us cover. Once again, this has been Zephyr with the BaileyWiki channel. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to keep up with all of our latest content. And consider becoming a patron. Not only do you support the channel, but you'll also get access to all of the modular systems and scenes that we've ever created, including these libraries of deployable buildings and interactive effects. Thanks so much for watching, happy gaming, and have a good one.